Welcome to Unspun Live, the Herald's politics podcast. I'm Rebecca McCurdy, the Deputy Political Editor at the paper. I'm joined by Gillian Mackay, the co-leader of the Scottish Greens, and crucially, the only female leader of the political party in Holyrood. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
How's the campaign been so far? Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's been really positive. It's a different experience this time being co-leader rather than just being a candidate last time round. So it's a different role this time, being out and about around the country and doing all the visits and things. But it's been really positive, and been out knocking doors with candidates and branches after all of the visits, and that reaction on the doors has been really positive so far, which is great.
People always say that the reaction's good. Like, have you ever had like a really terrible one where you instantly regretted going to the door? Because I think that seems like the most daunting part to me of politics.
I always tell my new activists, people are generally incredibly polite if they don't want to speak to you or aren't going to vote for you. I've had far more no thank you, not today, than someone who's really angry to see me on their doorstep. And generally anybody who is disappointed when it's a canvasser at the door is trying to get the kids in bed or bathed or get them their lunch or anything like that. So generally it is either people are really pleased to see you or they're busy or no thank you, not today, rather than actually being aggressive or anything like that.
That's good. Don't want that. Okay, let's jump right in. So the Greens launched their manifesto for Holyrood earlier this week, and it was a huge manifesto. I think it's like, 140 odd pages.
Yep.
Definitely the biggest of any other political party. There's like a lot of commitments. So free bus transport, an overhaul of council tax, really ambitious NHS commitments, including I think 15-minute GP appointments. But of course, that comes with the kind of usual critiques of the manifestos. So those the Fraser of Allender Institute have said it's a massive manifesto, but it feels like a bit of a shopping list. And to be fair, I think Scottish Labour got that criticism as well, because theirs was also a really hefty prospectus. And obviously, polling-wise, it shows, and we'll come on to polling a bit more, but it shows the Scottish Greens are going to do well, that you are going to potentially have a record Holyrood election, but probably not going to be in government unless you do a deal with the SNP, which again, we can come on to. And so in that case, the manifesto pledges, you definitely won't be able to do everything that's in that manifesto. So do you have something, an absolute essential where you're like, we will be using that to push, because that's what we've seen the Scottish Greens have done that and have done it well with policy before. Do you have a plan to kind of push something?
I think there's a couple of things we need to push, because obviously we're really ambitious in terms of spending and where those priorities are. So for me, the two big priorities in there that could be really transformational for people are the free bus travel for everyone, making it easier for people to get around their communities, and crucially making buses that first choice in public transport, that first choice for people to get around. And secondly, childcare, making sure we expand those free hours, particularly for women, to be able to make that choice to go back to work so that they're not paying a disproportionate proportion of their wages in childcare. But part of that is actually what we choose, part of funding that is what we choose to tax. We've made some changes on income tax over the last session of Parliament, and we've made some ways into taxing wealth in particular with managed tax, the private jet tax, but we need to go further on that, and that's why we have things like scrapping the council tax and replacing it with a more fair system, looking at big business like Amazon and making sure that we tax these out of town distribution centres to make sure we can support smaller businesses and fund our economy, and making sure that we have that balance between them so that we raise the money to then spend it on these really ambitious proposals that we have, I think is really important. But the whole manifesto sets out that potential real change that we could have within Scotland, that progressive change, and really bringing that hope back to people that politics can give them something positive.
Yeah. And presumably that would be with an SNP government. You can, we've seen it, you can push the SNP to do more progressive policies. and the post suggests certainly that it will be the SNP, either minority or majority. But if it's not, and if somehow, we've seen talk of this Scottish Labour deal with reform, if somehow it is Anna Sarwar, what will the Green role be? Because could you work with the Scottish Labour if they're in, maybe not in government, but in some sort of pact with reform?
I don't see how we could, to be honest. I don't think putting reform anywhere near power is going to be good for Scotland in any way, shape or form. The stance they've taken on minority rights, on LGBT rights in particular, they're standing an anti-abortion candidate in England. Those values do not chime with being in power in Scotland, and a Labour government propped up by them, I don't think I couldn't see us doing any form of work with them. But we are committed to, if it is that SNP government, making sure that we can push them to go further, making sure we do make real tangible change like we have done this session, making sure that we push that forward and really deliver for the people of Scotland.
Yeah. What if Labour are able to do government without any sort of deal with reform, whether it be kind of backroom deal or not, could you work with Anna Sarwar?
So I think the way UK Labour have been, and the way that Annis has up until recently relentlessly backed everything that they've done, whether that was around the winter fuel payment, whether that's slashing support for disabled people, their current stance on migration and preventing people working in social care from bringing their families with them. None of that are things that we would ever dream of supporting in any way, shape or form. So I think I can't see a way forward to doing anything with Labour, given the chance that they've squandered and the decisions they've taken in chasing reform to the right, rather than actually looking at how they could be a good and progressive government. And particularly Annis is following that line for an awful long time. Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about the Greens then, and we'll come back to the SNP as well. I've mentioned the polls are looking good for the Greens. I think it would be the best the Greens have ever done in the Scottish Parliament. How much do you think the new leadership has influenced that?
I think it's definitely made a difference. We have certainly had that generational shift from Patrick and Lorna to Ross and I think a lot of the voters we were maybe targeting at 2021, 2016 are the same age as Ross and I. So they're now, quite a lot of them are starting young families. They have houses of their own. So we're having to look at sort of how we make sure we're keeping up with those people and making sure that we've got that offer that goes across the board. We're also having this particular phenomenon at the moment where, with Nicola Sturgeon exiting politics, that we're having more particularly young women into their mid-30s coming to us, not just as voters but as members as well, which is really good and really positive for our movement as a whole. But I think also speaks to where we are in terms of politics. I think they've seen what I've done in particular in terms of the safe access zones last session. Many of them helped and supported with that bill going through, but also now seeing our policies on childcare and other support in those areas as well. So it's really boosting the movement as a whole in the election effort. There's more women out canvassing for us and delivering leaflets across the country that are first time. Sometimes some of them are first time political party members, let alone being active in those branches at all. So it's a really positive time. We're really looking forward to getting that biggest ever group because, as you've pointed out, we have a very long to-do list.
Was that something that you planned to do when you wanted to become leader and then eventually did become leader? Did you think this is a moment to transform the party and take it to the next level, and also, like you say, maybe target women who have never voted before or who have never really felt connected with politics?
So for a while I'd kind of toyed with standing for co-leader. this time when we elect our co-leaders every 2 years. For anybody that might not know, so this is a process that is timed and comes up. It doesn't mean that someone has to step down for us to be able to do that. This time round, it was an interesting time because my son Callan was 3 weeks old when the nominations closed.
Still on maternity leave? Yes.
When the nominations for co-leader closed, Callan was 3 weeks old. I submitted my paperwork from the hospital because he had meningitis when he was 3.5 weeks old. So it was a real knife edge thing for me at one point as to whether this was something I thought I could do with a small baby or not. And I was eventually elected as co-leader when he was 8 weeks old.
Yep.
I wouldn't be doing this without that co-leadership model that we have, because I just can't see how, with time and being able to make time for Callan and making sure that I'm at home and all the things that go with being a mum and doing justice to a campaign and the party, I don't see how you could do that as a standalone leader. So for me, we've probably not got a great number of really talented women within parties coming forward because of that barrier that's there. And I really hope that a lot of folk are looking at our model and going, actually, is that something we could be doing? It wasn't I ended up in politics by accident. This is never where I thought I would be. I thought I would be a primary teacher when I was younger. There are some crossovers and some similarities some days. But yeah, this was never where I thought I was going to be, even when I joined the party and all those years ago. But it was at that point when I made that decision, it was, well, if not you, then who? And that's kind of, and I had that conversation with my husband when Callan was sick, and he was like, no, this is your goal. Yeah. Go and do it. Go.
That's great. I think we spoke about this recently at the Channel 4 debate afterwards, that you are the only female leader, of course, co-leader of a party, but it matters that you are the only female in that Holyrood setting who is leading a party. And I wonder if, I was going to ask about the co-leader position and if that makes it more accessible, because you look at the SNP, they did have Nicola Sturgeon, and then I know that yourself and Kate Forbes don't agree politically on a lot of things, but she was the kind of next person who was in a senior position who had a young family. And I just think how different Parliament looks now. Obviously, everyone goes back to the time when Ruth Davidson, Nicola Sturgeon and Kezia Dugdale were all together, and it was this kind of like female-led political movement, and we just don't have that now. So I wonder if you have any concerns for what it's going to be like for when you're in Parliament come May, because I think you probably will be there. I think that's fair to say.
Probably around me. Never take it for granted.
Yes, but you will, when that happens, unless there's like some big shift. Obviously, people could lose their jobs. I'm not going to predict, but it could happen. You will be the only female as it stands. What do you think about that? Are you concerned, or are you? I mean, I imagine you're probably proud of it as well, of course.
I always start from a point of it's actually quite a lot of responsibility, because it does fall on you to go out there and represent everybody. And we saw all the comments around the first leaders debate and things, and what people thought. I thought Ross did a really good job. And it's one of those balances, like, is it equality to put me up for everything and make me do all the work when we have co-leaders, and actually should it be on some of the other parties to be looking at different models of how they get women into those positions of power too? It's a lot of pressure, it's a lot of responsibility, and making sure that we're out there and representing people's is really important. I think it is difficult when people hark back to the times of Kez and Nicola and Ruth, because that was probably just when I was really getting into politics. That was
about 2017.
Yeah. It wasn't long after I was sort of really seriously in sort of the political bubble and it is now very odd to be the only one there.
Yeah.
And yeah, for that to be what for those three, whether you agree with them politically or not, for myself to have to live up to those three personalities, that's a lot.
Yeah.
And I do just kind of sit there sometimes and go, okay, that's that is a lot. Why me?
Yeah, I suppose you have to remove yourself from, because everyone obviously does go on about those three leaders, but you kind of have to, and I imagine you do this, just completely be like, I'm not them and I'm my own person. So
yeah, but you do look at them and go, well, how did they deal with everything? They do well? Because I think there's a level of learning for all of us on what has come before and actually what worked of what they did. And it was that nature of interrogating each other's ideas, not necessarily each other's personalities, I think was a real hallmark of it. That's kind of been my style the last 5 years, is I'll have a go at your ideas. If I don't think they're right, I'll ask you, actually, how did you come to that position? Show me your working so that I can understand why it is you've come to there. And if I don't disagree with the outcome from your working, then that's still fine. But I understand where it is you're coming from. And I very much took that approach with safe access zones. And I think for a bill that was about abortion services and people getting to them, the voting place we came out to, given who was in that chamber last session, I'm hugely proud of, because we could have had a whole load of people who said we're voting against it no matter what, we're just not dealing with it, could have descended into an absolute rammy, as many things did last session. And it didn't. It came through really well, 11 or 14 amendments at stage 3. And that is the way I like to do my politics, is actually, because I hope that the vast majority of my colleagues, obviously some not, come to the table wanting to make Scotland better for as many people as possible. And trying to push the SNP further to do more and see our ideas and things is where I want to be in that political space and making change by taking people with us, because that's how you build that movement. Yeah.
Is there any female political leader that you've kind of looked at for inspiration? Obviously, you paid tribute to Nicola Sturgeon before she stepped down. And then I also appreciated your joke on Humza Yousaf. And obviously Lorna Slater was the previous co-leader alongside Patrick Harvey. Have you made a point of being like, I'm going to do it my way, or have you kind of reached out to people and just say, I like how you did this, can you tell me more about it?
So I've kind of done my own thing. I am one that likes to sort of watch and listen as well. I'm always watching what's going on in the chamber and who's doing what. I think you very quickly rule out what you don't want to do in the chamber and look for bits and pieces of how other people have approached things. And there's an element of just sort of feeling what's right for you as well. I was, for a long time, I was Alison Johnston's intern. That's how I got into politics, and I feel like Alison's style and mine is very similar in a lot of ways, and sort of building that consensus around issues and being willing to speak to people about ideas and talk things through. And she's kind of one of the people that I've taken an awful lot of inspiration from. And I'm looking forward to when she's no longer officially PO, so I can go to her a bit more and go, what do you think? But yeah, if I see Nicola, if I see Kez at various things, I will ask them and say, look, what would you have done? Yeah. Not to directly copy them, but to sort of hear that thought process behind things.
And then apply your style to it.
Yeah, absolutely, because you only see the end product in the chamber. You don't see all the work that goes on behind it.
Yeah. I mean, they've all got a wealth of experience as well. And I'm sure the kind of the new Greens that come up will be looking to you for that as well. So good luck. Whilst we're on the issue of kind of women in politics, I wanted to ask about Hannah Spencer, who won, for those who don't know, who won the Gorton and Denton by-election, beat Labour and Reform in a suppose, a kind of surprise result. You were campaigning with her, I believe. One of the first things that happened to her in Parliament was, you know, she made her maiden speech and she got criticised for what she was wearing. It was too bright. It was whatever. It was what it was. But obviously, you know, what was it like for you watching that? Because the Scottish Parliament is really different in that people don't really. I don't think it's so strict in what you wear, but also, I mean, it's just ridiculous that she was like kind of diminished as a politician because of what she wore. But yeah, what did you think?
I admire Hannah so much because what she wears and how she dresses is just an outward expression of her personality. She is this fun, sunny, incredible individual, and she expresses that outwardly through her clothes. And I think she was always going to go and shake up that chamber, and someone was always going to be unhappy with that. But judging a new woman to Parliament on what she was wearing, it just shows actually how little progress we've made in many ways. I think it is a very Westminster thing. I think any of my colleagues at Holyrood doing that would quite rightly be told very quickly
I think so,
how ridiculous they are. And actually it's quite often the opposite on the way into the chamber in Parliament. Everybody's saying what they like about each other's. I walked up to, it might have actually been one of the final sessions of Parliament, and I was behind, I think it was Mary Goujon and Ariane Burgess, and Mary was admiring what Ariane had on, and I was like, yes, this is the politics we should be built. And it was a nice feeling for the end of session. And I think it is just such a shame that we're still at that point where we're judging women on what they wear, because we're taking the eye off the ball that most of the men have the same 3 suits and they wear the same things all the time. But the women that come in and make it a wee bit bright and wear that personality outwardly are the ones that are criticised. And I really hope that they never get her down and that she keeps doing that, because it's so refreshing to see that. You can pick her out every single time on the benches, and it's just so hard.
Are you hoping that she'll come up and campaign in the Holyrood election? I know she'll be very busy, but presumably you'd like her to come up.
So if she had time, she would absolutely be more than welcome. It'd be great to see her. There are local elections on down in England, and there's Welsh Senedd elections as well. So Green Party England and Wales colleagues are super busy as well. If any of them do venture up, be more than happy to see any and all of them. But yeah, hopefully we'll get to see some of them soon.
I think Ross said that Zach was coming up.
Yep, we're hopefully getting Zach.
Yep. Okay, good. I look forward to it. Just back on the kind of Holyrood, the future of Holyrood. Ross Greer made an interesting comment recently, and I'm keen to get your thoughts. I imagine you know what I'm going to ask.
I think I do.
Yes, he said that you'd make a great First Minister. Is that part of your ambition at all?
I think it is now. Thanks, Ross. No, it's always interesting as to I don't know why people found that quite so surprising when we've got a co-leadership model, and Ross has always been really committed to amplifying women's voices within the party. I mean, most of the reason I got a relatively normal mat leave was because Ross took up a huge amount of the slack in the party for 6 months. Every time I can't really go to something that's late because of looking after Callan, Ross doesn't think twice. He goes in there and does what needs done. I think he would love to be in finance portfolio or something like that, getting stuck in and making some real change in there. We have different styles of politics as well. And from what I saw and from what we've chatted about, I think he just thinks that my personality is suited to that, whereas he'd like to get stuck into some of those other things. I would absolutely be First Minister if that's where we if that's where we were. And it'd be a huge responsibility and a huge privilege, as is being an MSP and representing the wonderful region that I have represented for the last 5 years. So yeah, he's kind of put me in it, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's absolutely put you in it. Okay, well, so I suppose the next natural progression then is maybe a more realistic thing for right now is Deputy First Minister, if John Swinney asked for a deal with the Greens. One of the things for you to enter government was, because presumably they're going to have to make a very good offer to get the Greens to go back into government. If he said to you, would you or Ross be Deputy First Minister and come and join us in government? Would you take it?
So I think we've worked well in government and out of government over the last 5 years. We've shown that we can get green policies enacted by working constructively in either space. Any deal that came forward from the SNP would have to be the right one, not just for us, but for the people of Scotland too. There's a lot of trust that would have to be rebuilt from the last time. There's some things that we got started that either went backwards or were really watered down. So there would need to be some confidence in there that anything like that wouldn't happen if a similar scenario was to play out again. But we're really clear that if anything was to come forward, would have to be the right deal for us and for Scotland. And really the focus for us at the moment is making sure that we deliver that biggest number of green MSPs ever, to make sure that we can get that to-do list done. Yeah.
John Swinney, as you'll know, has set his plan for a majority of SNP MSPs, and he says that's the only credible way to secure another independence referendum. Obviously, Holyrood has had a pro-independence majority for a long time now. What do you think of his strategy? Because obviously it's kind of setting up that natural division. Obviously it's all electioneering, and then when it comes to actually doing government, who knows? But does it help or hinder the Greens?
I don't know that it makes a huge difference either way, to be honest. We've obviously got a difference of opinion here, and that's fine. We believe that a pro-independence majority should be enough, because the independence movement is more than just one party. There's people of many parties and none in there. So making sure that the full range of voices are represented is really important. But we need to, what we've actually not seen recently, and we've actually seen Annis dodge this quite a lot of times, is actually, will a Labour government respect any mandate that we get in the Scottish Parliament and actually give people that independence referendum? There'll be young folk who are eligible to vote this time round who have never had the ability to vote in an independence referendum. And there'll be people voting for potentially the second time at Holyrood that didn't have the chance to vote in an independence referendum and would really like to have their say. I voted no in 2014 and would very much like to redeem myself and get another independence referendum. And I think that's why it's so important that we push to make sure that there is that big independence majority, and why we need that big group of green MSPs.
What's been the shift for you personally between 2014 and now for independence?
So some of it is actually that I'm involved in politics now, where I wasn't at that point in 2014, in the run up into 2014. We were promised so much from the No campaign. It was the only way to stay in the EU. It was the only way to do a whole load of things to protect the cost of living so that your bills didn't go up. All of those bubbles have been burst in recent years. We're out of the EU. We got Brexit and Boris rather than this lovely equal country that they were selling at that point. And I think we're at that stage now where independence, we could have that decision making ourselves. We could build that better nation. We could take the decisions that don't demonise migrants and actually welcome them into a country that's got an ageing population and really needs that inward migration. We can look at all the tax and the employment laws and actually make work pay for people. Build that fair social security system that isn't based on people taking random cuts to winter fuel payment or disabled people and actually build it with some compassion. So there's so many ways we could do. I believe we could do so many things better. There's also the really boring political thing in there that actually, in terms of working around reserved and devolved areas, even in something like health, where people think it's all devolved, drugs and tackling the drug deaths crisis involves working around so many reserved issues and so many things that we would like the UK government to move on, and it takes time and effort while people are dying, rather than us being able to take those steps, all of those steps ourselves. There's a great many things we can do and should be doing better on that within our own competencies. But there are other things that would make our lives an awful lot easier, an awful lot quicker to do things, even in portfolios where we think they're fully devolved.
Obviously, a pro-independence majority hasn't led to another independence referendum so far since 2014. Keir Starmer has said it will not happen, as you alluded to. Anna Sarwar has never really answered that question of what will he respect if that is returned. Keir Starmer is insistent that there will be no independence referendum, even if the SNP get a majority, even if there is that pro-independence majority. There's been some suggestion as well that maybe the independence cause would be better with Nigel Farage in government. I can see by your face that you don't agree.
Nothing else would be better with Nigel Farage in government. I don't see how Nigel Farage would grant anything either. And actually, there are a great many other areas where that would be an absolute disaster for everybody. And to be honest, with Nigel Farage in Downing Street, I'd be worried for the rest of the UK, for England and Wales as well, and actually what that means for them. Wanting independence doesn't mean we're uncaring for the rest of the people across the UK. And the devastation that could cause is awful. But Labour are continuing to deny democracy to Scotland if they keep standing in the way of this referendum. They're frightened of people having their say. They're frightened of that being a reflection on the chance that they have absolutely squandered over the last few years. The promise of change that hasn't materialised. They've chased down reform. They've enacted Tory policies instead of actually being a good and progressive force that they could have been.
So how do you get that then? If Keir Starmer's saying no, Nigel Farage, we don't know what he would do. And like you say, you do not want that. How do you get Keir Starmer and the UK government to change his mind then?
So if Keir Starmer's still Prime Minister very shortly.
Of course, but yeah, I mean, there's that hanging over him that if the Peter Mandelson stuff doesn't kind of put him out of government, that the result in the May election could. But then the next leader is probably just going to take the same stance.
They might not. I'm sure we will see in the short to long term, as to what happens there. I hope it doesn't change before this goes out. But I'm really keen, actually, that as a party we work with our colleagues in Westminster and Green Party England and Wales, actually to advance some of this as an issue down there as well. I think it's the way that Westminster deal with the SNP MPs down there and independence when it's raised as a fringe issue, whereas actually it's pretty important to people here. I think actually having those voices from elsewhere in the UK and from a different party can help to move that issue along. But I think we do need to start building that civic movement, rebuilding that civic movement that we had in 2014 as well, and making sure that we're keeping up that public pressure, because it's easy to dismiss other politicians between ourselves. Very difficult to dismiss the electorate when they are demanding something. So
it's maybe kind of going back to the kind of mood of, say, 2012 when independence was being discussed again, and taking it out of Holyrood a little bit, taking it out of Westminster and putting it back into the communities. Maybe that would would shift public opinion?
Absolutely. They are, with the greatest will in the world to myself and all of my colleagues, people convince their peers of why things are good in a great many areas. And I've heard so many fantastic conversations at community events about independence and why people want that, and having those conversations between themselves and convincing them, and having that back and forth is actually, it's really enriching to watch, actually, and hear what matters to people in that space and what they're worried about or what they're really hopeful for, depending on which side they come from in terms of independence. And I think we need some more of that. I think we need some more political conversations in general. It's why we're chapping quite so many doors, because I think people are really crying out for that conversation about it as well. It's something we really had around 2014, was people were talking about it. Whereas now, I think there's less talking about politics in that rational manner like there has been previously.
Yeah. Okay, well, just to kind of conclude, I want to ask about the Northeast. What is going on there? Because we had Guy Ingerson, and I hope I'm saying his name correctly. He was at the top of the list. He was then dropped because there was an unresolved complaint. Maggie Chapman, who is the outgoing Northeast regional candidate, MSP for the Greens, she is now standing again to be re-elected. She also has an outstanding complaint against her. So I just wondered, what's the difference there? And I know that it's kind of the Greens' approach to it is kind of more of a membership process of who stands as a candidate. But has this affected the credibility at all, this row of the Northeast?
So, as you said, there's complaints still live.
Sure.
So I'm really constrained in what it is I actually can say, but I'm really confident in our vetting and our complaints processes and the volunteers that have led those. So really looking forward to getting Maggie re-elected in the Northeast, and the Northeast having a Green MSP again. She's been really vocal on a whole load of issues across the Northeast, the campaign for the green space in Tory, rail links across the region, and making sure that we have that strong green voice in the Northeast is hugely important. But
you're content that there's not a bias there towards Maggie Chapman because she has been an MSP, because she has that wealth of experience, and presumably because she's close to all of the existing MSPs and the leadership, there's not that bias there.
All of those processes are completely politically independent of ourselves, and as they should be. And I have that confidence in our vetting and our complaints processes. Okay.
Well, it's been great having you on our podcast. I'm sure you'll be all over the campaign trail. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much for having me.